Hey, Roger Fields here. Now, what do I mean by energize your children's church? I don't mean that every children's church experience has to be some, high-octane, razzle-dazzle event. I don't mean that at all. Now, when we do Kids Blitz events and Fan Blitz events, we can have one shot at a crowd, so we kind of take that approach. But that's not what I would do week in and week out in a children's church, children's ministry setting. So what do I mean by that? When I say energize, I mean just come up with a strategy that helps you make your Sunday or Saturday night children's church, children's ministry experience something that's an effective learning experience. In other words, we don't just want to teach a lesson, we want to create a learning experience. And we'll talk more about that. But here's what you do. You want to tell people and be able to explain, be able to be clear about what you're wanting to do, what your goals are, and how you're going to accomplish that. So you've got to bring clarity. Now, if you can bring clarity to your children's ministry, if you can explain to people what you want to do and how you want to do it, that will help you in a lot of ways. It'll help you to bring value to children's ministry because people will get it. Oh, that's what we want to do. That's how we're going to do it. It'll help you recruit. It'll also kind of create a roadmap for your children's workers to know if they're kind of doing things the way that they should be done within your expectations. So, for me, I will tell you this. There are two non-negotiables about this. We're going to talk about these. We're going to divide them up. We'll talk about one, and then we'll talk about the other one. But there are two areas that I just don't budge on. Two areas that are just absolutely critical to me, and that's what we're going to talk about. Now, these are two areas that, for me, are paramount in creating this learning experience. And before I tell you what they are, let me say this. The acid test in children's ministry is that it does not matter what you teach. It doesn't matter. What matters is what kids learn. Let me say that again. It does not matter what you teach. It does matter what kids learn. In other words, you can teach all kinds of stuff, but if they don't learn it, it doesn't matter. So we want to look at things from that lens. What are kids learning? So to do that, we don't just want to teach a lesson. We want to, as I said earlier, we want to create a learning experience. And that's what we want to do. Now, there's a two-part strategy to that, and this comes back to my two non-negotiables. Now, I break it down like this. You've probably heard this before, but ministry can really be boiled down into two things. You want to build a bridge, turn on a light. So the bridge becomes how you connect with kids, your teaching tools, your methods. Turning on a light is what do you want to accomplish? What do you actually want to teach? What do you want them to take home with them? What do you want them to remember? What do you want to impact them with? So the issue becomes, how do you do that? So the two parts are, number one, your content, and number two, your teaching methods. Now I'll go ahead and tell you what these non-negotiables are for me now. Content, number one, and we're going to start with content, and then so we're going to start with the light and then talk about the bridge later, the methods later. But the content is your light. And for me, my non-negotiable is that I want to focus primarily on what God has done for them. The gospel is an announcement. The good news is an announcement of what God has done for us through Jesus. The life He's given to us, the forgiveness, how He's empowered us, what He has done for us, a whole lot of facets to that relate to daily living now. And so I don't want to focus on what we're supposed to be doing for God. The difference between law and grace is that law is primarily what we do for God. Grace is primarily what God has done for us. So I want to focus primarily on what God has done for us through Jesus. And then number two, the methods, I want to talk about interaction, how you get kids involved. That's my method. That's how we build a bridge. So two things. I want to use interaction to create a learning experience, and through that, I want to be able to communicate with kids what God has done for them. So vital. Listen, when kids get through your children's ministry, and they're either in middle school or high school or on in college, what will impact them the most is not that, well, they remember your list of virtues and values. That will not impact them the most. What will impact them the most is that they have a God who loves them, cares for them just the way they are, not the way they ought to be, but the way they are, who is committed to them, who sent Jesus to die for them, and that they know they have a God who's behind them, all of the way. A God they can build a relationship with because they know what He's done for them. And so we're going to learn how we can use some interaction, some really cool ways to just help kids experience that kind of message, the love and grace of God. And so that's what I mean when I say energize your children's church experience.